The dumpster fires continue in the north and the south. Six Nations is going as per usual. Let's get into it.
I need all the wins, yeah. Ain't no L's, I gotta get a no call and quits, yeah. Gotta keep on moving no matter how hard.
Here comes Danny Tusizawa, back to Baker, Baker with the fin. Kurt Baker in for DC, and this may well do it old glory with the try. The New Zealand Sevens legend, Kurt Baker with the cherry on top.
Can you believe it?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the On the Line Rugby Podcast, a show brought to you by the Blue Sports Network. I'm your host, Micah Nagaishi, and welcome back. Let's just adjust the elephant in the room for all my sound and visual companions. Excuse my bunnies. We're in a different location for the next couple weeks, so just bear with me while this happens. You're going to hear him a lot. Excuse him, but the sound may be a little off, but we'll work through it. Anyway, a lot of conflicting storylines coming out about the North and the South, basically about the same tragedies we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks that I don't think really have been getting the coverage that I think they deserve. So we're going to get into that. Obviously, we're going to get into the Six Nations. I'm really excited for that. Round 3 is looking to be a poised lineup. Obviously, we haven't gotten the official lineups come out yet, but I think we can expect more of the same and a little bit look into, what teams' game plans we'll be looking at going into the week against these teams. I think some of the best matchups are arguably going to be coming out of this weekend, so it should be fun. But let's get back into the tragedies I was talking about. Obviously, for all those who have been watching previously or are fans of Northern Hemisphere rugby, the Premiership has been taking in a lot of I'm not going to say tragedies, but losses in the last couple years. Obviously, you lost the London Irish, you've lost a couple other teams. A couple other teams also are facing a little bit of a financial decline, specifically Gloucester and Northampton. I think that's been said enough. So I think you'll be very surprised to hear that the Saudis will be looking to invest in the Premiership in some way, ideally with a controlling stake. Now, this is a private investment firm. They'll be looking to invest in 4 teams. Originally, it was supposed to just be Gloucester only with an 80% controlling stake, but that didn't really seem as, appetizing to the investors as they would like. So they've included Leicester, Newcastle, and Northampton in that group. Obviously, Leicester and Northampton are some of the more supported teams in the Premiership, so it's kind of interesting to include them in that group. But I think it'll be good for them if they can get it done. But we'll get into some of the controversies about that in a bit. Basically, what they'll be looking for is an controlling stake of at least 80% or higher in the franchise. They want clear stadium name rights, and they want each team to have an academy in the Middle East to then promote the game. And obviously, I'm assuming to send players up north. They're looking at ideally getting the 4-team merger done, but obviously they will have a little bit of problems here and there. So if because of the controlling stake idea. So ideally, if it doesn't close, they're looking at least getting 1. I'm assuming it's probably going to be Gloucester, but it hasn't been really revealed yet. Obviously, both the Premiership and the teams have declined to comment based on these rumors. And honestly, I don't think it will go through based off the attitudes given in comment by anonymous sources, basically saying that they don't want to be included in what they're now calling sports washing, where Saudi Arabia is covering up the reputation by investing in fan entertainment, i.e. sports, golf with their big merger with the PGA, signing big soccer stars, etc. So they're trying to side away from that, but I think it'll be really hard to pass up that kind of private equity money getting invested into the Premiership. Just like how New Zealand got backed into the Silver Lake deal, I really think the Premiership is going to be forced to do that, especially with the fact that New Zealand was in a much better place and still is before the Silver Lake deal was finished. The Prem needs to be kept alive. I really think it's one of the best leagues in the world, and it would be sad to see another couple teams go. So they're going to need to find some way to get private investment firms, if it's not Saudi Arabia, somewhere else to get into this. build up the marketing. They're obviously more in the US on a more affordable deal through TRN, but something needs to be done. It needs to be enjoyed by the fan base worldwide. It's a different brand of rugby than what most people are used to. Obviously, more attrition based, more physicality is involved, and a lot of great scoring, a lot of great storylines. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I personally would not like the Saudis to get into it, but I can't deny it is a massive amount of change, and oil money talks, and as we all know, everything else walks. So it'll be a mixed bag if they do get it. They probably might even get one, I'm assuming, if the RFU even allows them to, but we'll see what happens. Let's move a little bit south to another travesty in the Melbourne Rebels. They're obviously facing a lot of uncertainty with my coverage on Friday about them being essentially in bankruptcy counseling in a layman term fashion. So the independent financiers come up with a decision to sack the CEO and move all the coaches to 4-month deals. Obviously, that is a huge thing. The CEO is probably going to was in charge of most of the deals with the CFO. So I think he had to go regardless. But giving the coaches only a 4-month deal is kind of worrisome, given the fact that obviously playoffs or Super Rugby run into July. So you may or may not get paid for the playoffs, even if you make it. Now, Melbourne obviously is going to be fighting a lot to even get there, given their talent disparity. But they have had a lot of upsets, and I think they could play spoiler and maybe get a wild card spot. Maybe. And this is a fat maybe. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. There hasn't been any more news regarding the merger with Moana Pacifica or any dispersal regarding in that line. So obviously I would like to see more of a dispersal draft, move a little bit of players here and there, obviously more than the merger. And if you are going to merge them with the Western Force, who arguably has had the second worst finances in all of Australia. Now, I know the transition from Melbourne to Perth is going to be a little harder, obviously, than something moving east or towards the coast or like in Sydney, but, with the Waratahs. But when you look at how the Force have in terms of fan base, the way they show up to that stadium, I really think that would be an interesting merger if you're going to keep it in Australia. I'm sure the fans would like it as well. And, maybe move the Force to Melbourne. Who knows? I'm sure you can get some fans over there, or you can build a stadium in between and have them commute. I think it'll be an interesting opportunity for that to share a 2-stadium deal. But the writing's on the wall, I think, at this rate for a Rebels collapse. I really don't see anyone in Australia willing to buy out the Melbourne Rebels, given the fact of, when you look at it in Amy Park, there's not a lot of fans to begin with. So when you're looking at the rest of the league in terms of how they stack the stadiums, I think it's a little disappointing that this won't happen. Amy Park is probably one of the more fun stadiums I've got to go to. And watching them close will be sad. I'm not sure if they're going to share the stadium and then keep it if a merger does happen, but it'll probably go on the wayside. And if you look at Melbourne, it's more of a league town anyway in AFL. So hopefully they can make that a dual purpose and keep the stadium going. But please, everyone, cross your fingers for that to happen. It needs to go down. I don't see anything else happening with the Rebels other than really just moving forward. I think they're going to have to, at this rate, if they merge them, maybe bring in the Japanese, maybe, the champion from the top league, if they're not going to do a full-on merger, comes into Australia, plays a super round for the championship, and they kind of merge like that, and then slowly but surely merge the top league. Perhaps not as aggressive as I proposed last week, but if you really wanted to do it the slowest way possible, that would probably be the easiest way to do it, kind of like what they did with the Sun Wolves, but ideally not in China for reasons. But let's move on to Six Nations. As for my favorite matchups, I think we'll talk about them last, and I think we'll move for the obvious first. Excuse me. As for France versus Italy, I think we all expect Les Blues to really win this one out. I think there's really no option for Italy to kind of position themselves to really push themselves out of where they are with, combating for a bonus point loss. They fight hard, but obviously they don't have the talent that France Ireland really do have. I would like to see more of a bang game in terms of physicality, with more of a showcase from Pietro Malvaca and obviously Jonathan Dante, who really haven't been showcased, at least in the scoring regard, in the offensive front, to be brought on just to really match them in the trenches. The Italians are going to play a physical game. I think they're going to try to avoid having, Damien Penno and Bielbari really line up out wide and just start taking pot shots at them. They're going to try to move this more into the center of the field, in between the hashes, and just force a blood match. And, they're going to need to really capitalize on I propose a lack of physicality, given the idea of what Galthier's squad are going to be looking at with the loss of Paul Willemse to that, what is it, a 3-game ban because of his dirty red cards. So it'll be interesting to see in that regard. I think they're going to need, the Italians will need to put in Stephen Varney at 9 over Garbisi, just because they're going to want to add some little chaos to really capitalize on Monty Ioane and Angie Capuozzo to really take advantage out on that wing. They're going to have to play fast. I think they're going to have to expect more of what they did to Ireland in the first round, just kind of play a little slow, allow things to happen, and then boom, 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 boom. England, and then allow them to come back late and try to score a bonus point loss. You can't really go for a win in this one. I really don't see it. I think Gail Fiku is going to have another masterclass. Obviously, Gregory Aldry is that boy. He's going to do what he has to do best, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But, things may be, underdogs always have a chance. They're not the Japanese, but hey, here's to hoping. As for them, I really consider them probably in a loss of about 10 plus. I would say it's probably like a 35% chance that they get a bonus point loss. They have a shot, very slim shot, and they would need to take a lot of windows out in terms of winning the physical battle on the breakdowns. They are going to need to stop the subterfuge attack, and they're really going to have to force a lot of the guys like Penno and friends, they're explosive playmakers, to really slow down. Now, France has had a lot of problems out wide in terms of that. Penno has not been obviously the player that he should be. I think they're starting to shut him down. That's why Bielbari is starting to get a lot of those open touches. And obviously they're starting down Jonathan Dante. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see what the Italians do to really slow down this French attack. They are a little coming off of a high off that win, but as we all know, talent beats talent. As for England versus Scotland, I think this is probably going to be the second best match of the weekend. I really like England going into this match with Borthwick showing improvement across the board, not only in physicality of the attack, but also the confidence really out wide to bring in not only veterans of previous regimes of the Eddie Jones time there, but also to bring in new blood and really have them blossom. I think the idea of what they did with last week, obviously, we're bringing in Henry Slade, Elliot Daly, with the combination of Freddie Stewart, really helped their attack and solidified their continuity out wide. I really expect them to capitalize on the Scots' lack of discipline and breakdown success, and then work through George Ford, whether that's through kicking, or game management, to really force the Scots on the back foot continually. And they just have to be critical. In terms of what Borthwick could bring to the table, like I said, bring a little bit of that high ball acrobatics, try to slow down Duhan van der Merwe. I think it's going to have to be done. That's really the only way I can see them doing it. England's obviously physical up front, but they're going to have to do a little bit more to kind of slow down that explosiveness of Finn Russell. And other than kicking, they got to play a game of kick tennis. But outside of that, just short carry through the forwards, but that'll get them tired fast. So we all see the writing on the wall. As for like what I expect from the English, I really expect Ollie Chessum and Ben Earl to really shine. Chessum, while he did get the yellow card last week, he is probably one of their better high ball blockers on the team. He's already blocked a couple, as we've seen already. And I think that this could be a game where he just goes up to Finn Russell, and it's going to come down to that. Who can stop the kicks? Who can stop the punts, the box kicks, And Chessman's the man for the job. As for breakdowns, I think Ben Earl is in a feast on this game, just because of the Scots really lack of breakdown discipline. Without having like guys like Jamie Ritchie and friends on the field on a constant basis, they've lost the captaincy. Confidence is at an all-time low. They're looking to really force the Scots to really fight for that ball, and I don't think they got it. Ben Earl is a physical player. That guy's a dude. I think we've seen it in the World Cup, and we've seen it obviously throughout the first 2 rounds of Six Nations. He's going to push it forward and just try to either not only bowl people over, but at least slow them down effectively. England's a pretty feisty team, so I would love to see that happen. As for what else they could do, you could have Finn Russell and co really needing to maintain physical attrition, because obviously with England's downhill blitz defense that Borthwick is bringing to the table, you're going to have to maintain a little bit of energy to keep that confidence going. And they're going to have to maintain the score late. It's not going to come down to Finn Russell kicking it with his 100% kicking efficiency. It's going to come down to who can explosively score. So looking at that lineup, and they're going to have to own the possession margin, you're looking at a physical team up front in the forwards, and probably an interesting, more eclectic group out back with the wing. I would love to see Cam Redpath and Darcy Graham get some more concerted minutes in this match, just because we haven't really seen them this Six Nations as much as I would like. I think Redpath is one of the better guys on the Scots, outside of Hugh Jones. I know Sione Tuipulotu always puts his hand up. He's a really good player, but Cam Redpath brings an explosiveness that I think they need with Hugh Jones' ability to manage the space at 13. Darcy Graham, we've already seen him work. He's one of the best. I would say he's one of the fastest players up north. I'm not sure what happened to him to why he can't really get the minutes that I would like him to get, but he deserves more, and I really want him to get the ball fed to him more often, especially in this game where you're looking out wide. They're not going to be looking at a lot of explosive players. It's going to be a lot of possession-based players, in my opinion. Getting some explosiveness outside to help Duhan out can't hurt. Obviously, as for the score, if I'm a betting man, I would probably put this in a 3.5 to 5 points average for the margin of victory for England. But, the Scots could turn into a 2 or 3 point loss, bonus point, or a victory, depending on how the points shake out. I think Finn Russell's going to keep doing his 100% kicking margin. If he misses, though, this margin could go down, but I expect nothing but confidence outside of him, and hopefully he's learned to keep his consistency a little bit on the point rather than letting himself go trying to be hero ball. As for the Ireland match, I think this is going to be the best match of the weekend, bar none. Them versus Wales is going to be an interesting play to have out wide, and, physical grudge matches abound. We all know what the Welsh can bring when they really ball out, and I think this is the perfect time to show it. Excuse me. I still expect Ireland to continue rolling. Maybe not a blowout, but at least a good 10-plus point victory. I think it will be contingent on Harry Crawley's kicking abilities to manage the space, and James Lowe and friends really just getting out wide and forcing a lot of mayhem. Obviously, Crowley is probably my bet for MVP at the pace he's going, but I think he's going to really need to manage the space given the fact that the Welsh just coming downhill. Obviously, the Irish have known that, and they do it just as well, if not better, on the defensive front. But given that, they're going to need to kind of exploit some things. Expect a lot of chipping, a lot of deep punts and box kicks. They're going to need to play with Craig Casey a lot, and especially a little bit of pick and go, maybe a little snipe here and there. I think we'll see where they go with that. I think it'll be a successful game plan for them. I think Wales are going to have to try to match Ireland in the trenches, but they will be edged out. They're going to have to really get in there with really Adam Beard and the rest of the boys. They really just force turnovers, keep it in mauling phases. They're going to have to go for a lot of inverted veers, really just push time of possession out. Obviously, it's going to be a battle of who can stop penalties. Wales has started really either really good or really bad and really bad, or started really terrible and really good. But they're going to need to try to find the consistency. This is the game where I think that you have to show a statement if you're Wales and Warren Gatland that you are a vastly improving team. If you can cut the margin with Ireland to a 3-point loss, I think that's a victory morally for the Welsh. And they're going to need to really show that statement that Gatland, despite getting snubbed for the Irish Lions captaincy and coaching, that he's still the man for the job, and he's still one of the best coaches of all time. They also need to fix their ruck watching and their turnover margin. I really can't say this enough. They've already been gutted by their ruck watching in 2 games straight, and their turnover margin is terrible late. They're always trying to do too much. I really need them to shape up or ship out. Gatling needs to make some aggressive decision makings in his lineup to really force an interesting physical game out wide. I'm not sure who he's going to go with, and he needs to feed Rio Dyer. This cannot be overstated. Josh Adams needs to work a lot. I hope they bring back Liam Williams at 15, because that'll be interesting to have him just taking in kicks. The high ball is going to be important. I think he'll be a good counter to Harry Crowley. And they really need to feed George North too. His power is understated. I know he's a little bit old, but come on, feed the boy. He's been balling. He's hitting a second win, I think, in the Six Nations. And especially after that World Cup, he's out for blood. I really can't see them gunning for a bonus point unless everything goes perfectly. But, obviously they're unlikely to make it based off that margin. I would probably put a bonus point loss for Wales in the maybe 20 or 15% margin. I really think Ireland's going to hit that bonus point and just keep moving. They're probably going to start with an early lead of at least 15 to 18 points. I would like them to see a plus 20 margin by the end of the first half. But, betting, man, can't be obviously too accurate, and we can't be too hopeful either. But it'll be an interesting game this weekend. Best be sure I'm waking up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday to go watch these games. But that's going to be it for me this week, guys. Can't wait to see you on Monday for the recap. Hope to see you guys soon. Peace.